Today's conversation is not an easy one, and it's not meant to be. This is a story about a crime, a trial, two very different outcomes from two different juries, and the ripple effects that follow long after the verdict is read. We're joined by the daughter of David Frank Martinez, who was convicted of murder after a second trial in Pueblo, Colorado, following an earlier mistrial. She believes this conviction was wrongful. Tonight, we're giving her space to share why, what she saw, what she believes was missed, and how this has shaped her family's life ever since. Our goal isn't to retry the case here. It's to listen, to ask honest questions, and to explore the human side of a process that is often reduced to headlines. We're not a court. We're not investigators. We're sharing one family's perspective, and we're relying on publicly reported information for the case timeline. The Mike and Tony Show is intended for a mature audience. Listener discretion is advised.
What's up? What's up? This is Luke Cisna. You're listening to Mike and Tony. And if you want political advice, go somewhere else.
It is episode 265. It's a Saturday morning, Pierce.
It's a Valentine's Day.
It is a Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day, dollar.
Oh yeah,
to my hetero life mate.
Okay. Yes, it's we had a week off too, right? My birthday was last week. I was in Washington D.C.
Also, happy birthday.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, you brought me a beautiful hat, which for the one time in like a million episodes, I was like, I'm going to go no hat today. But yeah, so I'm really excited about today. I haven't seen you in a while. Before we get into it, how was your week? How are you feeling? How's life?
Week was good. Shortened week. Oh, no, not a shortened week, was it? No, this next week
is
a short week. So I'm already excited.
You're living in the future,
Yeah,
bro.
that's how excited I am for a shortened week. No, pretty simple, pretty easy. Just, rocking the day gig and, fitting in extracurricular activities when I can.
Yeah, got to.
Yeah, I mean, gym and all that stuff. I'm a late night gymmer. Everybody knows that. I never see you at the gym because I am always at the gym, 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night. So
yeah,
that's my jam. What about you, Dollar?
Yeah, it's been a crazy week because I was in Washington, D.C. at the beginning of the week. So I came in halfway through. I had to come back and immediately give my students a test. It's like, hey, welcome back. Time for a test. I was like, damn it. So, no, it was okay. It was a pretty chill week. We did parent-teacher conferences this week, too. So Thursday and Wednesday and Thursday, we were there from 7 a.m. till 7:30 p.m., it's a long day. But because of it, we earned Friday off. So I actually have a 4-day weekend.
Oh, my God, dude.
This weekend, which is dope. But I've been excited about this week. This is different than I think anything we've done on previous episodes, right? We've had quite a few guests. We've had, themes and all kinds of sorts of things. But why don't you introduce our guest, who's a friend of yours? You guys worked out together, as you referenced a second ago.
So this is Jasmine. She's her father is David Martinez, who was convicted of a crime back in just recently back here in December of 2025, down in Pueblo. But today, we're just kind of getting the perspective of Jasmine's family on the process and how it's been, how it's affected them personally, professionally, financially, all that kind of different things, and just kind of get a feel of everything that's gone in the process, because this has been like a 2-year.
Those things are so
going
crazy.
On
how long?
And so long, and it's just wild because I've seen celebrity cases go on years and years and years and years, and it's just so wild the difference between just your regular guy and somebody that's has.
What are you talking about, Mike? This is an equal country. Everybody gets the same opportunity.
I would beg to differ on that. So, but welcome,
100%.
Jasmine, to the podcast.
Well, thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah. So, I mean, kind of preface, what we're here for, right? Your father back in June of 2024. Well, that's when said crime happened, right?
Yes.
And exactly what happened on that day, what they were saying.
Yeah. So on June 28th, 2024, it was a Friday. A shooting happened at Veteran Tavern's bar in Pueblo, Colorado, that night. So it's more of an older crowd bar.
Mhm.
And people were just there. They have live bands there. I believe there was a birthday party there that night, and people just hanging out at a local bar. And then out of nowhere, shots just start ringing out about 12. And a lady did die. She got shot in the chest and died, and then another lady got shot in the hand and she survived. And my dad, got thrown into that whole situation because his truck was seen in the area, and mainly because his ex-girlfriend was at the bar that night. So that's how they were trying to piece that together and make up this story that my dad was pretty much just there to target his ex-girlfriend. They were trying to make it like a domestic violence thing, and it definitely wasn't. So yeah, that's
So the
a little
victim
bit.
wasn't the ex-girlfriend.
No, she wasn't.
Oh wow. Yeah.
So the shots rang out at the back of the bar, like from the alley, back into the patio area of the back of the bar. And it's kind of like, if I could picture it for you guys, it's like a house kind of.
Yeah.
Looks like a house, and there's like a backyard, and then there's a gated fence to gate it all, like the back patio, and then
Where you can probably smoke and all that stuff and everything. Yeah.
So they said that the person, was in the alley and shot over the fence into the bar. And the bar really only had just like a back door. I don't really think there were windows. I'm not too sure, but the 12 shots rang out, and one shot, and it was like, I guess, a direct shot into the
12
bar.
shots, you said?
Jeez.
Mhm.
What? Did they have a gun? Did they know what kind of gun that was?
No, I can't think of the top of my head. It's like it was a semi-automatic.
Okay.
I should know this, but
No. It's
can't
okay.
think of it at the top of my head. But that weapon has not been found to this day.
Interesting.
Yeah, we'll get more into that a little bit later. But yeah, and then the lady that got shot in the chest and died, she was just standing more towards the back of the bar, and then it struck her in the chest, and then
So she was inside the bar.
yes,
Okay.
yes, and there were only 3 people. There were 3 ladies that went out to smoke. Like they went out, and what they said when they testified, they said they were only out there for like 5 minutes before they started hearing shots. But at first they thought it was like fireworks, because this was like it was like that weekend
I read
before
that online.
July 4th.
Yeah.
And it's not uncommon to have people shoot
Do it
off fireworks
early,
or even after 4th
For
of
sure,
July.
around here too.
Yeah, so at first they were like, it sounded like fireworks, but then they realized it wasn't when the bullets started hitting like the stucco on the wall, and so they ran inside. One lady did get shot in the hand, and then all that chaos happened after that. But yeah.
So none of the people that were outside got shot?
No, just
people inside.
one of the ladies that was outside got shot in the hand while going back inside.
Okay.
But other than that,
Interesting.
just that one lady
Caught the stray.
Yeah.
Okay, so I kind of want to just back this up and make this human for people too. So like before all this happened, what was he like as a father, as a person? Tell us a little bit about him and growing up with him and stuff.
Well, my dad, he's an amazing man. He's just the type of guy that would just give his shirt off his back, help anybody. Literally would help anybody. He would help a lot of the homeless people in Pueblo. He didn't live in the greatest area, so there was always like homeless people going up and down by like the alley that he lived by. He's just an amazing father. If you have a daughter and you have that father-daughter relationship, or if you are a daughter who has that relationship with their dad, like there's just nothing like that bond. And that's how me and my dad are. Just one of my favorite person in this world. Well, besides my son, but yeah, he was an amazing father, amazing grandfather, amazing he has 5 sisters. He's the only boy.
Oh.
He, amazing brother, amazing son. He made sure he always, his mom, my grandma, was always taken care of, and he was a very handy guy. So he's 63 years old, and he had just retired that year in May of 2024. Just a hard worker. He his whole life. He served his country when he was younger.
What branch of the military was he?
Army.
Cool.
Yeah. So he just did his 4 years. And then, so he retired that year. And then in June, earlier in June that year, he had a heart attack and a stroke, which he survived. And which is, he has severe heart problems. He's a diabetic. He has a lot of health issues that he struggled with for pretty much all his adult years. So when that happened, it's amazing that it's a blessing that he survived that, and then it caused a brain bleed. So he was, in the hospital for a little bit, and then he had got out of the hospital, and a week later, this shooting happens. So that's a pretty important piece.
Wow.
But yeah, so he just, he had some health issues, but, he had just retired. He had worked hard. He was ready to just live the rest of his life and, enjoy time with his grandkids and all that. And he's a big car guy. He likes, he's built lowriders, and he's won a lot of trophies for his cars. And
geez.
just, he had a motorcycle. So, he was in his little biker club, not a gang, but a club. And yeah, just, just overall, just a chill guy, quiet. He's not the type of guy to raise his voice. Not a intimidating guy, not a violent guy. He's, not a troublemaker. He doesn't have a record, a criminal record, nothing like that. So it's just crazy that this happened to him.
Was there a point during all this when you kind of realized that this was probably going to change your guys' life forever?
Oh yeah.
When was that moment, do you think? Or was it a single moment?
So when when my dad told me, when I started to hear, when my family was telling me, your dad, the police had took him in to do some interrogating, or, to talk to him about the shooting that happened. I was like, oh, that's crazy, and at first I wasn't really thinking much of it. And then when they finally actually took him in a month later, and I'll never forget that call from my cousin and my aunt. And that just right then and there, I just knew this is it. My whole world just crashed down, and I knew this was going to be a very long, hard fight from then on out. So, yeah.
And this, you believe this is a wrongful conviction for sure.
Oh, yeah.
And we should also mention that there were 2 trials.
Yes.
The first one was a hung jury. It was a mistrial.
Yep.
Yes.
Declared a mistrial because they couldn't come to a conclusion. And then there was a second trial when he was found guilty, and it was first-degree murder and then attempted murder.
Yes.
Um,
Correct.
What do you think the single biggest piece of evidence or thing that people missed, or why this went the way it did? If there's a single, that may not be the case.
Well, the police did, the detectives, they did a horrible job with this case. There were so many things that they didn't do, and that all came out in trial, because our lawyers, my dad's lawyers, brought in an expert that just kind of goes over what they did wrong,
Yeah.
Is that public or anything like that, or?
It should be, I believe.
Okay.
Almost like an auditor, sounds like.
Yeah, because it was live streamed. So
Okay.
I don't
okay.
know how you go about going back and looking at trials,
Sure.
but I'm sure there's a way you can.
Yeah.
But what else?
But you had also mentioned something about the sweatshirt and hoodie and everything, from
Oh,
videos
yes.
and everything.
Yeah. So, I would say the detectives, when they when they got my dad's name, and that was it. They just focused on him. They didn't look anywhere else. They were like, "Yep, we're just going to focus on this. We're going to pretty much create this story because his ex-girlfriend was there. And
what really got them to that point? Like, why did they zero in on him? What was their reasoning?
So when crimes and stuff happen, they question people who were there and just kind of like simple questions like, did you go through a breakup? Do you know anybody that would do something like this? Stuff like that. And I believe my dad's ex-girlfriend's friend, who was also there with her that night, had mentioned that her friend, my dad's ex-girlfriend, they had just broken up. They had just broken up that day.
Yeah.
Or earlier that day.
Gotcha.
And so that's kind of how my dad's name got mentioned. And then also it was said that, his truck was seen in the area. And I do have to say, like, that's not uncommon for my dad to be in that area. He lives like down the street from there, like pretty close. And that's just not a place, like an unfamiliar place for my dad. Like, cause he had said that he was out that night to get some food and then ended up not feeling well. Cause like I said, he had just got out of the hospital a week prior.
Before, yeah.
Had a lot going on too.
And, he's on a lot of medications. So that doesn't make him feel good, but he just wanted to get out and go get some food, and,
What do you think the difference, or did you feel the difference between the first trial and the second? Like, what was the difference?
Oh, yes. Well, the first trial, the prosecutor, he was by himself because his partner that was supposed to do it with him she had moved, I guess, and just couldn't make it back for this trial. So he did it by itself. So it was kind of like all over the place, in a sense. But so when our lawyers did their opening statements or opening argument, they actually had found some strong evidence of another suspect, which fit more of just kind of like someone who would do something like this. And it's like, you can't always judge people, right? But it was very strong evidence. And so that was presented a little bit in the opening argument. And then after that,
the first trial or the second?
The first trial.
Okay.
And after that, the prosecutor, had an objection. The judge was really upset. And because initially stuff like that should be presented before trial. But like I said earlier, that the detectives narrowed in on my dad and that was it. They didn't look anywhere else. And mind you, Pueblo has a very bad gang war that's been going on. And, the crime out there is just really bad, the gun violence and all that. And so
this is in Ward 5 too, right?
What was that?
In Ward 5. That's what I was looking up, is like the neighborhood where that place was. That it's notorious for that. There's a lot of that kind of stuff going on there.
And even that same night, a bar down the street got shot up too. And they just...
The same night?
Yeah. It was, I think it was either before, I think it was before this shooting happened. I'm not too sure if it was before or after, but it was the same night.
Whoa. And they didn't connect those two things at all?
No, they just, I think they ruled the other one out as like just gang violence, which is crazy, like I said, but that they just narrowed all this on my dad, the 63-year-old man. But yeah, so yeah, there was evidence brought in, and then of another potential suspect, very strong evidence. And there was a guy in jail with my dad at that time before they moved him, that said, I pretty much know I had a confession from my friend that said he, did this crime. And so we were trying to bring all that into the first trial, but they denied it. The judge denied it. The prosecutors obviously filed motions to not have that in there, and the judge completely denied it, which blows my mind because why you're about to send somebody away for the rest of their life? Why don't you want to make sure you have the right guy? So they just denied all that, and that obviously didn't get carried on through the first trial. After the opening arguments and everything. So we couldn't use that. And then
once it was, because it was rejected for that, is that automatically for the second trial as well? It was out?
Yeah.
Or okay.
I mean, we tried. We fought hard to get it in the second trial, but...
And what was the grounds for them rejecting it, or did they say?
I'm not too sure, just because it's all like all the
Yeah.
legal stuff
sure.
and the laws. It's like it
Yeah,
was all
better
so
to-
confusing, and I don't, that's not my expertise. But yeah, but I believe it was like some type of law or something that the judge brought in. But honestly, I just really think all that was just really BS, to be honest. And I do have to point out that the judge was a newer judge, and the lead detective on this case, he was only a police officer maybe for a couple years before he went into being a detective, and this was his first big case. He was only a detective for like a few months. So that's also kind of blows my mind too, because you don't have, I would say, the experience for something like this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's a lot going on. It's just so crazy to me how the two trials were so different.
Yeah, and then so then the second trial, the prosecutor ended up having a partner with him. So I just felt like that made it a little bit more organized for them. But in the second trial, they really try to emphasize that this was more of like a domestic violence thing.
Like a lover's scorn kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And mind you, Pueblo's a small town. And so my dad didn't really get a fair trial. Okay. So yeah, like they, whatever county you get the charge or the crime happen in, that's where you're going to have the trial or whatever. But after the first trial, everybody already knew the case.
See, that reminds me of like, again, high profile people when they have things happen, they go out of their way to make sure that they're going to somehow get a fair trial, and they try to stop people from paying any attention to anything online. So I would think something like that would also be the case for like a really small community like that, where everybody knows each other. So it's hard to get somebody who's outside of everything.
Yeah. So, so like by the second trial, it's like, how can you not know that the jury was already kind of knew the case and probably already had an idea of what, they thought happened. And, so it just felt very different. And it like, when it really felt different was when the verdict came in. The jury only deliberated for like maybe 2 hours, and obviously that wasn't. It's never really good, when it comes back that fast.
I did see that it was really, really quick.
And
actually, the whole trial kind of wasn't it? Only a couple weeks or something.
Yeah, it was a little bit more organized than the first one, like I said. But yeah. So when the verdict came in, I noticed that all the detectives and the police, most of the police department, like came in and like went obviously to the victim's side, and I just felt that was very odd, like almost like they knew what the verdict was, because that didn't happen in the first trial. Nobody came in for the verdict like that, like the detectives, and none of that. The detectives that were on the case and like other police officers, like a bunch came in, and I just thought that was so weird.
And they shouldn't know that until after, right? When it's actually read or whatever.
Nobody knows until it's read by the judge. So I just noted that, and I was like, wow, that was weird. That felt different. Something just didn't feel right. And like I said, also Pueblo's a small town. You don't know, like, if people, you're not supposed to lie and be, when you get sworn in as a juror and all that, you're not supposed to lie and all that stuff. But how can you know, like, that they didn't know the victim's family? And mind you, the victim's family, I guess she was a very well known lady. She did a lot in the community. Her son was involved in like a lot of politics and stuff out there. So he knew a lot of people. She knew a lot of people. Whereas my dad, quiet guy, just kept to himself. He was born and raised in Pueblo, but he left Pueblo for a long time. So, through his adult years and when he got married to my mom and everything. So that also too, I feel like played a big part on why they wanted this conviction so fast too. They got this guy, they found somebody, right? And they believed it was him with the, lack of evidence. Like literally they only had him on circumstantial evidence, no like real hard evidence.
That was
why no weapon, yeah.
That was my big question, was the ballistic stuff, like the weapon and being able to connect the bullets to the gun, and what was the actual gun. So they didn't have a gun. Nobody had a gun. That wasn't part of anything.
Yeah. So when they searched my dad's house, they did find a gun. but it wasn't the same gun. And it didn't hold as, what is it, calibers? Like, I'm not
The
a
same
gun.
caliber,
Yeah, I'm not
or
a gun
probably the
person, but-
amount, because you said it was
Yep.
12 rounds. That's
not a pistol or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, and I believe his held maybe like way less than that, maybe like 8 or less,
Okay.
if I recall. But it wasn't the same brand. The bullets weren't the same brand.
that
So
was
the
my next
bullets and the
question,
gun
yeah.
that they found at my dad's house didn't match that gun. And that gun was never found. It's like I said, it hasn't been found to this day.
Is that the only gun your dad has, or does he have multiple guns?
No, it was just my dad only had one.
Interesting.
And he's never shot it. So, my dad they found it in like a truck, like an old truck that didn't work. Cause it was just one of my dad's project. He just would keep it out. Cause like I said, Pueblo's not the safest place.
Yeah.
He didn't live in the best area. So, he was always out in the garage. He was out in the garage late at night, car guy. So, he had it for safety, as most people do. And they almost kind of made it seem like, well, why do you have a gun? Like why does anybody have a
Yeah,
gun
why
these
does-
days? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, and I do want to get in more into about the murder weapon, the actual gun, because now that's a whole story in itself. So that gun was reported stolen a few years ago by a guy, his last name Sacamano. He had lived, so my dad had lived with my grandma for a little bit, like a few years, maybe a year or so prior to this shooting. And that guy happened to live on the same street as my grandma. And like I said, Pueblo's very small, but my dad didn't know this guy. My family didn't know this guy. And so the guy who owned that gun and reported it stolen, I guess he was known for just like carelessly dealing with his guns, or like just important things like wallets and stuff like that. And so he would lose things a lot. That's what was said by his ex-wife and his stepson in the trial, because they testified. And I believe he ended up testifying in the second trial, so they were actually able to bring him in. And he just said he just lost it, and it wasn't uncommon for him to lose stuff, like important stuff.
So they determined the gun, that they just could never find it. Is what you're
Yeah,
saying.
and
okay.
so, but that specific gun was tracked back to a shooting that happened in 2019 at a McDonald's, and the police had that gun in custody. And then once that case closed or whatever happened with it, they gave the gun back.
What?
Yeah, and normally, like,
to that guy.
yeah,
Whoa.
they gave it back. And he honestly, he's I don't really obviously don't know him personally or anything, but it just seemed like him and that family just had some troubles, and but yeah, it blows my mind that they gave that back to someone. And then I think it came up again in a domestic violence case with him and his ex-girlfriend. And then all of a sudden, this gun gets reported stolen, right? And then around that time it was reported stolen, there was a lot of break-ins, on that block. So, it could have been stolen. It couldn't have been. We don't know. A lot of people probably could just say, I would say, like, oh, just to cover their butt, let me just say it's stolen or something, maybe for money, or just because maybe something actually did happen, or they sold it or something, Like I said, it's Pueblo. The gun violence out there is wild. The young generation out there, the gangs, it's really bad. So, yeah, they just they were trying to connect that gun with my dad just because he happened to live down the street from that guy at the time. But the gun was never found. The gun hasn't been found. But it just blows my mind that, this gun was connected to other things. You guys had it in custody years prior. Obviously, nobody knew this gun was going to come up again in a horrible crime like this. But it's just that just goes to show the poor handle of a weapon. As the police department, you shouldn't have never gave that back to.
So before all this happened, how would you describe like how you felt about the system and the justice system and how things worked? And did that change at all through the course of this? Did you lose faith in how things work?
Well, I know the system is not great, and I'll be honest, it's not designed for people of color. You know,
There's a lot of stats to back that
yeah,
up.
and I don't really want to get in too much into that, but I just know Pueblo is a pretty corrupt town, and that really came out with all this with my dad. Just within the trial, like how poorly they handled the evidence. Like, oh, I can get into the sweatshirt in a little bit, but just how poorly they handled this case and how they just put together this horrible love story, and my dad wanted to end it, make it seem like it's domestic violence and
How long were
stuff
they
like that.
together, by the way, before they broke up that day?
They were on and off for like 2 years.
Oh, okay.
So, and later, and I do have to say, later on that day of the shooting, so that earlier in the day, his ex-girlfriend went over to my dad's house to get the rest of her things, and my dad even changed the tire on her car because she had a flat tire, and my dad was just like, you need to come get your stuff. I'll change the tire.
Sound like they parted very cordially.
Yes, and so my dad saw her earlier that day. So it's like, if you wanted to say she was a target, then why wouldn't he do something? If he really wanted to hurt her, why wouldn't he just do it then and not put all these innocent bystanders at risk for something like that?
I'm curious too about the actual like physical setup, like the fact that it was shot from outside even the yard area, right? Supposedly, and that only one person was hit. I'm wondering, like, how big was the doorway? How many people to get through and to hit that one particular lady? It just seems so random.
Yeah. So what they were trying to say is that, because there was a wood pallet in the alley, and that was propped up against the fence, and there was like a broken piece on it. So they were trying to say someone stood on it so they could shoot over, because they were predicting that the person was like 5, maybe 7 or something like that, not tall enough to like stand there without standing on something.
Okay.
That they just shot over the fence. I would say the doorway was probably just like a regular doorway. It wasn't anything wide or big. There wasn't, like I said, I don't believe there was any windows, just because there was nothing that said when, shots broke the windows or anything like that. I believe what was said was like the bullet that hit the lady in the chest, it like bounced off the wall and hit her just directly in the chest.
Oh, so it was a ricochet then.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And the bar is pretty small. It's pretty narrow. Like, I would say, like, it's just kind of like,
A lot of bars are like that. Yeah.
like, here's the bar, here's all the seating area, and then there's the back area where you go out to the back. So yeah, I mean, whoever did it, I mean, probably just had a pretty good angle, just despite not really, or probably expected more people to be out in the back. I'm not too sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, the fact that I think that's interesting is that she wasn't in the backyard.
No.
At the time, and so I don't know how they would tie those together.
Yeah, because they were trying to say that because her friend that she went with went out. She was one of the people out that went out to smoke. So they were trying to say that my dad would have known what they looked like. Mind you, it was dark, and the last person because I guess one lady went out first, and then two other people followed out a little bit after her, and then they turned the porch light on, and then they said once they turned the porch light on, maybe like a few minutes after, so they were probably out there for like 5 minutes before they started hearing the shots and everything. Yeah. But that's what they were trying to say, is that, oh, my dad would know what they look like,
or what they sounded like, probably too. Yeah, a lot of that circumstantial stuff is
interesting.
Yeah, is interesting, and how they tie that to a person.
Right. And his ex-girlfriend, when they interviewed her twice, and then even in trial she would say like she never felt threatened by him.
Yeah, that's gonna be my next question.
Yeah, never felt threatened by him. He's never put his hands on her or anything. And that's through any of his relationships.
His girlfriend, the ex-girlfriend, said that?
Yeah. And she even had said that, because they had interviewed her in the beginning, right? And they didn't interview her again until maybe a month or so later. But she even said that if it seemed like once they weren't really telling her what she wanted to hear, she just like, I never heard from them. And she was just like, that's weird, because if you feel like I'm a target
Yeah.
and I'm supposedly a victim, when you think it's this person and they live only down the street from me, why aren't you guys making sure I'm safe? You know,
And
that's
did the
another
defense leverage that interview at all?
thing.
Yeah, of course.
So what is, I mean, do you know what her stance was on it and everything like that? Does she feel like he was guilty of it or innocent of it?
She just said he would never do anything like that, but for the most part, you can just tell she's just one of those people that just does not want to be involved in the law at all or anything.
Yeah.
And so it was just kind of just like, you know, just didn't really want to be involved in this, you know, and I can understand that, because it's like it's confusing, and two, you're trying to say someone that I was with, you know, and I know him
Was trying to kill me.
And that's just, and she not, like, she even, like I said, she never felt threatened by him or anything to believe that would be the case.
So right before we started the show, you had showed us the surveillance video that was used to supposedly allegedly tie him to this thing. The one thing that struck me, because I had read a little bit publicly about it, and there was discussion of like the guy in the video had a limp and that it matched his limp. I don't know. I mean, what did you think, Pierce? When I saw the video, I was like, did that guy have a limp in the video?
I don't feel like he had a limp.
It didn't look like
That's
a
what
limp.
I felt like. Yeah, I felt like there was. No
Yeah,
limp
just
in
our
that.
opinions, and you know, and there's a disclaimer at the beginning of the show. This is all, we're all just, you know, giving space to talk about this and to be open. We're not saying anything in particular as far as what's true or not true. But yeah, so I wanted to talk about that a little bit, because the video, first of all, is very blurry.
Yeah.
And then you had mentioned something about
The sweatshirt,
the
yeah.
sweatshirt. Yeah.
Yes. So, you know, in trial, obviously they made the video a little bit more clear, but yeah, I mean, you can tell that person, I wouldn't say that person in the video had a limp. They had more of like if they're sagging their pants walk, like kind of more so of how younger guys walk, I would say, you know.
Oh yeah.
Almost kind of like, you know, just like I said, like sagging, right? And you can tell a little bit in there that he was sagging a little bit just by the clothes he was wearing. Obviously, I've seen this video so many times, and I've seen the clearer one, you know, in trial. And my dad doesn't own any clothes like that. That person was wearing some type of jogger type pants. My dad doesn't own joggers. He's always in jeans. Just a jeans, boots guy. That's what he wore all the time. Belt, he never sagged. Never sagged. I've never seen my dad sag. I've barely even ever seen him in sweats. So, and hoodies, I've never really seen my dad in hoodies. He always has like a flannel on or a zip-up jacket. And that hoodie is an actual hoodie. It's not a zip-up hoodie. And you can tell like that was just a plain old hoodie.
And what was the one in the truck? Isn't that where they said that was the same hoodie?
Yeah. So so when they took my dad's truck, my dad had a zip up jacket that had like flames on the side. It was a black jacket, had flames on the side, like blue flames or something like that on both arms, and had a big old like decal on the back, like a motorcycle.
And that's
thing.
what they actually argued was that sweatshirt was the same sweatshirt the guy was wearing in the video?
Yeah, they were trying to say that with certain surveillance videos that some things won't show up, but it's just kind of crazy
That looks like a light colored sweatshirt.
It looked just like the light gray Nike hoodie I got.
Yeah. And even too, like when the person's coming back, you see them coming back down the alley, like, and you can see the front of them.
They're running, yeah.
It's a hoodie. It's a full hoodie, not a zip-up hoodie. The one they took and went and put it into DNA and all that and got tested for like gunpowder and stuff. That, you know, had all the decals on it. Like,
was there any findings that linked it? Any kind of?
So they found a small amount of gunpowder, so they say, but mind you, this was right before 4th of July. They didn't take, so they didn't take my dad's truck until like a month later after this shooting, because that's when they took my dad in, and that's when they took his truck in for, you know, evidence and stuff. And so his sweatshirt was just sitting there, and I believe it was in the back of the truck at the time.
Like the bed of
and
the
my
truck?
dad, and my dad wore that same hoodie at a 4th of July event, my cousins, they do a big 4th of July event, and they shoot off a ton of fireworks. And nowadays, you don't even really know what's in these fireworks. So firework gunpowder could be mistaken for gunpowder. I mean, they did bring an expert in who did the testing for the gunpowder, and she was just trying to say, like, if it wasn't gunpowder, this is why it wouldn't be gunpowder. But honestly, like, people, like, especially in Pueblo, people shoot off guns all the time too. And so that was just in the bed of the truck. So it was sitting there for a month, right, before they took the truck and the hoodie and everything into evidence and stuff. And then it was even said in trial that they mishandled the hoodie. It was in the bed of the truck, and then somehow it got moved to the front of the truck when they were searching. Like, they did a poor job searching his truck.
And not to mention, this was way later.
Yes. So, and you have to be very, very careful with evidence, because, you know, DNA could get transferred so easily.
Oh, yeah.
Like, if I were to have gunpowder on me right now and I go hug you, it's going to be all over you, you know? So it's like, and these are police officers. These are people searching who are around guns, who probably shoot off guns, you know, for practice, stuff like that. So, like I said, that hoodie my dad's jacket was mishandled through all this. It was in the back, and then all of a sudden it was in the front, and then they sent it off, you know. And when they sent off his jacket, they sent it off with another piece of evidence from another case, and they ended up getting those mixed up, like the names. They put the wrong names on it.
Oh my God.
So that goes to show you there how poorly they handled evidence, and how poorly they handled this case. And that kind of held up DNA evidence too, you know, on the hoodie because of that mix up. Which I'm like, that's just wild. That's a pretty big, you know, mess up thing that they did. So
now, when it comes like to, my question was like, when it comes to like mistrials or hung juries and everything like that, they can just keep on trying a person every single time unless it's an actual verdict that comes out that says like innocent. Yeah, because obviously you can't do double jeopardy kind of a deal. But as long as it's a hung jury or a mistrial, they can just keep on going and going and going.
Yeah, it's really all up to the prosecutor. So when the first trial was a hung jury, we kind of knew that they were most likely going to take it back to trial. And that was just, you know, that's awful, because I'm like, but it's crazy because, you know, his first trial was in July, and then they were able to schedule the next one in October. And that just kind of goes to show, like, a lot of times trials take a long, long time.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about before, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And they just wanted this up and over with and just done. And that was just kind of weird too. So that was just that was definitely just odd. But it so yeah, it's just crazy how it went from a hung jury to a complete verdict on the highest charges. So
well, that was my other thing too, when I noticed what the conviction was, because I was talking to Dollar about it, you know, and they say first degree murder, so it was like an intentional thing on doing it, like, and again, how, you know, Tony was asking about motive, right? You know, like, how do they determine motive, and how do they determine it's premeditated? How do they determine like all that kind of stuff? Because it hangs a different kind of a balance as far as the conviction and the penalty of it, because first degree is no parole. Second degree is the possibility of parole. Third degree is you're going into like manslaughter and stuff like that. Yeah. So how did they determine that it was premeditated, that it was a first degree charge?
Yeah, I think it all came down to the story they put together as that my dad was just trying to target his ex-girlfriend because she was there that night. And that's just kind of how they planned that was a premeditated thing, which blows my mind as well, because it's like I said, my dad saw her that day. Why didn't he do anything then? Like, it's just like,
yeah.
And I would say, like, I feel like if my dad were to do something like this, he wouldn't have put his whole family through all the pain and stress, the financial stress, all this. I feel like he definitely would have just been like, hey, I messed up. I messed up big time. I'm so sorry. You know, he wouldn't admit to his wrongs. Like,
yeah.
But
and you also said too, no prior record or anything like that as well. So.
Yeah, no prior record. Like I said, a lot of people, like, his family, his friends, people he worked with, they can say they've never seen him angry, raise his voice or anything. So the fact that they came up with this domestic violence thing, because at first they weren't trying to make it seem like that, but that's how they presented it in trial, especially the second trial.
Yeah.
And for them to really be like, oh, this is a first-degree murder charge. Because honestly, I feel like, I hate to say it, if the death penalty was still around, I'm pretty sure they would try it as that, It's just.
And for reference, it was abolished in 2020, the death penalty here in Colorado.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's just crazy. And it's like when they actually have real hard evidence on other cases in Pueblo, like you could just like look through all the cases, recent cases now, like they'll convict someone of like manslaughter when they blatantly did a premeditated crime.
Yeah.
Happens so much out there, happens so much everywhere. And I'm like, you guys are really gonna say with just the circumstantial evidence of his truck being in the area, his ex-girlfriend happened to be there that night, that you don't have no weapon, no DNA, like they found no DNA, like fingerprints or anything like that.
Definitely seems like the size of the community and how small it is and everything plays such a big role in this, right?
Yeah.
Because this was New York City and it was the same place, where the girlfriend was, and it was the same. It's different when it's like probably the people in that neighborhood are probably at those places all the time.
Now, the one thing that I tried to look up that it probably doesn't tell you publicly, were both the first and the second trial the exact same charges, or were they just a different charges for each case?
They were the exact same charges.
Okay. Because that's my other thing too that I question.
Yeah.
Is first degree again is the premeditated deal. Even if it was your father or whatnot, like if it strikes a stray person, you weren't intentionally trying to kill
That's
that person.
the thing. It was never
So,
mentioned anywhere. It was that it ricocheted off a wall and hit her. So it just seemed so random.
Yeah.
Right.
I was also curious about, there was two things that stuck out. And you and I had talked about it, was that there was $1 million bail.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
What on earth? I've
seen celebrities like with far less than $1 million in bail, and that's what we were talking to. Like, and you even said it perfectly too, right? The justice system is definitely flawed. Where it's it works again just like taxes, right? Works out for the rich people, and obviously the poor people. They have the opportunity for public defenders and stuff like that. But if you're like middle class, you don't have that option for public defender because you'll qualify for that money and stuff like that. And so, financially you have to try to find your own thing. And then, if you're rich, if you have some good money, you can get a lawyer, you can afford a lawyer. But when I saw that, I was like, $1 million.
Yeah, that was wild.
Like, that's
part
wild.
was wild. I was also curious about the, so it was life in prison was the sentence, and then an additional 48. Was that 48 for the attempted?
Yes. It was.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, but yeah, we tried so many times to get that bond lowered, but the judge was just like, nope, I feel like that's reasonable since we're trying to convict him of first degree murder. And I guess
But is that's true? Is that standard procedure if it's first degree murder?
Well, because that's the other thing too, why they set, so the reasoning why a lot of that is set so high, right? Because they want to keep them obviously in custody.
Yeah.
But they set those high dollar amounts because of a few different factors, right? They factor in prior record. They factor in
high flight risk,
or fleeing, right? And so, again, just from what you have described, from your father, no prior record, anything like that. He's not going anywhere fleeing. He just had medical stuff the week before, like, where are you going? Where you running to? It's gonna.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, just like a little bit on that. They thought he was a big flight risk, but mind you, if he was a flight risk, he would have took off within that month span from when they first interviewed him, interrogated him.
Yeah.
It was like a month, like completely. It was like a whole month. They didn't arrest him until mind you, this crime happened in end of June. They didn't arrest him until beginning of August.
What was that period like for you and your family? That weird month from when it first started to when he actually got arrested?
you know, it was awful. I mean, we were just scared. We were scared.
That's what I think about, and
So-
I know I keep bringing it back to this stuff, and thank you for being willing to choose us as a place for you to have your voice here. But I think there's so much humanity to this. Like, we see headlines, right? People see this was a pretty prominent case, like it was all over the news and everything, and people see headlines, and I think there's such a drastic difference in that comparison between what people see in headlines and what it is like for somebody in the family living this day to day, going through these kinds of experiences. I think about that month, and I try to put myself in those shoes and realize, like, that month would have been fucking horrendous. Mike knows I have anxiety in general, and I think it would just be so stressful.
Yeah, I struggle with anxiety, depression, and it was awful. I mean, I was like, like me, like just the person I am, I'm like, oh, that won't happen, and it freaking did. And
well, that's what I was going to ask too. Like during that whole month span, like you said they'd question him already, and then they were like, no, you're good. And obviously a month later, that the whole month goes by.
Yeah.
Like in that whole month, you guys, nobody had any inkling of if they were going to arrest him or anything like that, or you guys were just like, oh, he was questioned, he's cool.
Yeah. I mean, pretty
question.
much, because like, and my dad, I'm sure, felt the same way, that he was just fine because he knew he didn't do it. And but yeah, like he definitely wasn't a flight risk, because he, like I said, he would have took off within that month if he really felt like he was like he was actually going to be taken in for this. And two, or I wouldn't run away, because I mean, that obviously
you also said that your dad would have fessed up to it if that was
and
For the sake of his family.
and
and stuff.
right. And then two, they really try to say he was more of a flight risk because he had put his house up for sale, but they don't know that my dad's when he bought this house, it was only temporary for a few years. He only wanted to stay in Pueblo for a few years, and then probably come back to Denver or maybe out to Arizona, because that's where my other brother lives.
Are you here in Denver, by the way?
Yes.
Okay.
And so it was just kind of more like just a temporary house he bought, wanted to fix it up and sell it and, get money off
Like
of
a
that.
flip,
Because my dad he would flip the house, some houses that he bought, and then, but he was a car guy. He flipped a lot of cars. That's just what he did. And it's just like how the timeline is, timing is very messed up, obviously, but he was getting ready to sell his house at this time when all this happened. So once the police, they were stalking him for that whole month and, watching his every move, they were just like, oh, he has his house up for sale now. That's odd. So they really, really believe that my dad was just trying to flee. But mind you, you're not going to sell, let's be honest, you're not going to sell a house in Pueblo, especially in the area he lived in, within a week or so.
Yeah. No,
my dad wasn't just going to sell his house up and leave.
Yeah.
If he wanted to up and leave, he would have did it, or like he would have
Well,
confessed
there's
or
like
whatever.
so many other factors, even what you're mentioning, Mike. I mean, the guy just had surgery. Right. He's on different medications and things, I'm sure, for some of his conditions. It doesn't, I don't know. It's only speculation. It's just what it looks like to me from the outside. Yeah. That is,
No.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just, like as far as like the due process and like, the court system and everything like that. Like did the family, did he have like a public like attorney, or did the family like get an actual attorney and everything?
So we actually got we got a really good lawyer, him and his partner. God, they were amazing. But they were $150,000, and we, my dad is very, very loved, and we thought it would just be for his best interest that we would get the best that we could find.
Yeah, for sure.
We could have went the route of a public defender, but we were just like,
no, yeah.
They really think that my dad did this, so we need the best of the best.
Yeah.
And they did amazing. They fought hard. They helped us out with the second trial, like money wise and stuff like that. So we're really, really thankful for them. And they're going to continue. They're continuing, helping my dad throughout the appeal process and everything. But yeah, that was like, I would say my dad literally lost everything. He didn't just lose his freedom. He lost everything he worked hard for. Like I said, he just retired. All of that gone. All his cars, all his lowriders and his bike, everything he worked hard for. the money that he had saved for his kids, whenever he passed, like everything gone.
Yeah.
To pay for these lawyers and just to make sure everything was, and we still had to come up with money. So it was it was awful.
How is he personally? Like, how have you spoken with him, and how is he taking things? And
my dad, just with me being his youngest and his, youngest girl, like his baby, I would say, he doesn't really talk to me much about how he's feeling. Like he will here and there, but he mostly more talks to my brothers about it, and obviously his sisters. Like his sisters go and visit him every day. But he, how would you feel? You just got convicted for the rest of your life on a very high charge for something you didn't do. Like that's gonna tear you down mentally, right? It's gonna just and it's like you can't do anything about it. You're stuck. Like I don't know if you guys have ever been to jail or anything, but I personally have. I did 2 months in Weld County for something stupid, but that was a long time ago. But just being in there, you're just like you just feel like an animal. You don't feel like a person. You don't feel like a human.
Yeah.
And like I would say Pueblo County is probably the worst county to be in, that jail. It's a very horrible jail. It's I heard they're getting ready to build a new one, but that one's like really just, the food is bad. Really, jail food isn't great, but that one's, he said it's really bad. It's overcrowded. Just the building's falling apart. So, it's just being in a place like that and just like, he's having a hard time.
Yeah.
But
dehumanizes you. It
yes.
Takes away from you, breaks you down and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and he but I'm so proud of him just for hanging in there, cuz I'll be honest, stuff like that makes you want to not be here anymore, And you do hear stories of people in prison and stuff that they do end their life cuz they can't take it no more.
Yeah.
But I would say I'm kind of surprised, I'm happy. The stress hasn't taken him out, due to like his health stuff. He's had a little health scares while he's been in there. So,
yeah.
But
that was another thing I was going to ask too. Like, with the health stuff, that's definitely taking a toll on that body, because your body, reacts to stress differently, and then in circumstantial stuff like that, where he's at, that was another thing too, like the care that they give to him. Like, is it any different from any other person or anything like that? As he said, anything indifferent to that? Like, they still meet the medical needs that he's supposed to have?
Yeah, they have to, because it's a big liability on them. And my, my aunts are on it,
always on it,
always on it, making sure. And so, yeah.
That's a rough one. Just again, like she said, I don't know if you've ever been in jail or anything before, but I've hung out there a couple of times. So again, young and dumb and fights and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not the greatest place to be, and it does make you question, the stuff that you've done. It makes you, while you're in there, like, man, dude, it doesn't put you in the greatest headspace.
Yeah. I can't imagine.
Guilty or not, you're always going to be in there just like, damn, dude, I'm trash, bro. Like, you're just like, it doesn't feel good.
Yeah. Strips you of everything, I think.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's been awful. It's been really hard to navigate through. And not only for me, I also, feel the pain for my son, because my son also has that bond like me and my dad have, and that's like his guy. So it's just
this
like,
guy's, your dad's a grandpa and has
well,
a family.
It's all snowball effect too, right? Because the pain that he's feeling, is the pain that you're feeling, and then that, snowballs down to him, because you're sad, mom's sad, grandpa's sad, like all that stuff. It's just like, like, how do you cope with that? Like, how do you try to?
I just stay busy in positive ways, I work full time at Kaiser, and I have like a little side business going on, and I go to the gym.
What's your side business? You throw it out there.
I do like, I have like a website where you can just buy like your everyday products, kind of like, in a way, like kind of like Amazon, but it's not Amazon.
Oh, cool.
But
What's
just
the?
like your everyday products. So just like hair care, skin care, vitamins and supplements, sports nutrition stuff, home care stuff.
Oh, what's the website?
It's so it has like my name at the end, but it's, I don't know if you've ever heard of Amway, but
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
And that's been a great positive thing in my life, you know, and just being around that environment, the people I've met through it, just steering my way, like my mind towards just not just learning business and obviously, you know, money off of it, but
Yeah.
just expanding my mind to just changing my mindset about things in life. Because, you know, unfortunately, my life didn't stop when this happened to my dad, and
Right.
I have a
That's-
son to take care of, and you know, it's unfortunate. And you know, the best thing, I always tell my brothers this, like the best thing we can do for our dad right now is just take care of ourselves.
Yeah.
Because we don't have him no more. Like my dad was always there for us, like made sure, like even as us as adults, like God, he was just like the one person you can call on for anything financially, especially cars, you know,
Yeah.
like stuff like that. Like, but I'm like, and you know, with the health too, I'm like, we have to take care of ourselves. Like that would break our dad. I don't think our dad would be able to make it if something happened to his kids or you know, someone he loved out here. So,
Yeah.
so yeah.
Well, I really admire you, and I think I admire that, you know, the strength that you have to go through this stuff, and the fact that you do keep pushing forward. Also, the measured approach you've had with it. I saw the little clip of you a while back, kind of saying, you know, when you were ready, we're going to talk about it, and knowing where those lines are. I just commend you for that, and I'm just sorry that you and your family have had to go through all this, because that is, I like I said, I know a little from my dad being in and out of prison. It was just extremely painful the whole time, and it does strip something. You know, it's like you're a less than, or it's this overall feeling. But it's really it's admirable how you keep going and you show strength, and that you're here sharing the story. So I just really appreciate that, and I appreciate you being willing to do that.
Yeah, thank you. And I appreciate, you know, for having me here and be able to actually tell his story. And because you know, I'm gonna do my best to just be his voice out here and just advocate for him. Because you know, me and my family, we stayed quiet for the year and a half just to make sure we didn't, you know, hurt his case or anything. But
Yeah.
now it's like we're done being quiet, because I just feel like you really, really have to advocate for yourself. And with my dad being in there and convicted now, it's going to be harder for him to advocate for himself in there. So that's just, I just want to be that for him, his voice out here, because this happens to so many people.
Oh, yeah.
This really changed my mind on, because you're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. They completely just said, nope, he's guilty until if he's innocent, you know.
And
proven
that's what I
innocent.
was getting at earlier with that question, was like, if this changed how you feel. And I don't think if you took a poll of Americans, I don't think most of us feel the justice system is like this great, well-oiled machine that serves justice like its namesake. But most of us are not really like, oh, the justice system is awesome. But I did wonder how much it shifted your perspective on that, seeing something like this happen so close to you.
Yeah, and just, I mean, I've never I've never sat through a trial. I've never been in a situation like this with any, like myself personally, or like loved ones, like to this extent, right? So being like, you know, you watch movies or you watch real cases on TV and stuff. So being on the not on the victim side, you know, not the prosecutor side, but on the defense side, it was very interesting and very just opened your mind to so much, that the things that how the courts do things, and like how prosecutors do things, and how they really just try to make up a lie and just try to really just get people to say, oh, I did a crime that they didn't do. And it's like I said, there's a lot of innocent people behind bars, and we've heard stories like where people were in prison for pretty much their whole life, and then they finally get found that they weren't guilty, and they get released from prison and stuff. And
that's my number one reason for being against the death penalty, is because if we know there are people that are locked up that didn't actually commit crimes, we can't have sentences that take their life from them.
Yeah.
That's
still got to give them the opportunity throughout their life to to try to prove their innocence as well.
Yeah, the whole system, I mean, it's been set up this way for so long where it's like, it's this idea of punishment, it's like this idea of we punish people.
Not reform.
No, you need rehabilitation, reform, reconnection and stuff like that. So just in general, the whole thing, that's why I think it takes you down so much. So is that what you would say, like what, because I wonder, like, what do people miss because most people have not been through a trial, have not seen all those details. What are like some of the big things that you think people miss from just seeing stuff on TV and court cases that are fictional and news headlines and things like that being on the other side?
I mean, people just put their trust into the law right away and think that, they have a person in custody, so they must have did it. Or else why wouldn't they have them in there, And you can't always believe what they say. Like, so yeah, just like you can't just put your trust into the law right away. Like, honestly, the same people that are supposed to protect us will, are also against us too. We see it a lot happening right now with everything going on in the world. And, and I do want to mention that when they, arrested my dad, literally, I believe like that either later on that day or the next day, the Pueblo PD blasted him all over their Facebook. It was already on the news right away, in the newspaper, like completely just slandered his name.
Wait, how did they can do that? They put it on like their Facebook and stuff like that, and saying what, like, hey, we got this guy or something like to that effect,
in custody and stuff like that.
Yeah,
for the possibility.
Had his picture on there and like right away, and I was just like, I can't believe they do that. I didn't know that they can do that because he didn't even. Like literally it happened the next day after he got arrested, and it's like he hasn't even gone through trial or anything or whatever, the outcome was going to be. Like, he wasn't convicted.
So yeah, you're in your mind, you're like, wow, they're already putting this out here that this is the bad guy, and everybody can look and say that's the bad guy.
And that's all came down to when they were picking the jury. Because this is a small town, how do you know? News travels fast, in small towns, even in big towns. But it's like, when you have it all over the news, all over the Facebook, and social media is a big thing now, it's like, how can you tell that these people that you're picking the jury for, like, already don't have an idea? Because like I said, people do put their trust in the law right away.
Yeah.
And just going back to how that family, the victim and her family were very well known and, into politics out there and all the things, like, it just didn't. It's all just wrong. It's all very wrong. Everything that happened and just how it all came out. It's just blows my mind that that's kind of how everything just went down.
It reminds me of like what we're seeing right now too, like with the whole, with everything going on in the world with ICE and all this situation. I don't know if you saw, I posted a story a little while back. I went and saw the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C. It was really interesting. What was interesting is like people think of the Holocaust as like just all of a sudden they were gassing Jews and all this terrible stuff.
No, it was building up.
It was very slowly, very gradual process, kind of the way that whole thing happened. But when you get to the very end, there's this quote from a Lutheran minister from back then who originally was a Hitler supporter and a Nazi supporter in the beginning. And his quote is something along the lines, first they came for the fill in the group, the social whatever, but I wasn't that, so I didn't say anything. And then they came for the unionists, and I wasn't a union, so I didn't say anything. And then they came for the Jews, and I wasn't Jewish, so I didn't say anything. And then they came for me, and there was nobody left to speak for me. And I think that's part of what's wrong, is like that human mentality of like, we put the trust in the law, we see what we see in headlines, and we just kind of go like, yeah, this is probably what's going on, right? We just make these assumptions. We just think immediately that these kind of things are happening until it's someone you love.
Yeah.
Until it's in your backyard, until it's someone around you, and then you get this peek into everything. But it's so odd that before that happens, everybody's so quick to just accept what they're given.
Exactly. Well, again, that's the world that we're living in right now, right? Yeah. Everyone takes what's online as fact, right? Mm-hmm. The internet said so yeah, that's what it means.
Which is insane with all the bullshit out there.
Yeah, and people don't do the research for themselves, and they don't go to the full extent of figuring things out for themselves. And it goes into the whole mob mentality too, right? So you have a friend and it's like, oh, he shared this. Like, oh yeah, if Tony shared that, That's
Right.
That's my buddy. Then he knows what's up, stuff like that. And so people kind of just mob in together and like, yeah, that's the truth.
Yeah, and when we're also so we're just susceptible to like drama or to like high intensity situation where we're just kind of like we take stuff and we just go, oh my God, that's crazy that happened. And you don't pause and go, wait a minute, this was a reel on Instagram that I saw. Did I research it? Do I know?
Yeah.
And there's so much bullshit out there. And that's what I think. And that was a big reason why I wanted to do this with you today. Is, like I said before, there's a giant gap between public perception and headlines and all this and what
TV shows, everything like that. Yeah. They don't know the human factor that goes into pre-trial, the human factor that goes in actual trial during the things, when your father was waiting in there to be even tried, right? The whole due process of that, people just assume that it's like easy, like bam, 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 bam sort of a thing. And it's not, obviously, for the accused and for victims as well. It's a whole different process.
I think more than ever, we need to be critical thinkers. Of like not just taking everything at face value of what you're seeing out there, but like really thinking things through, because these kind of things can get exploited when we're not connected to each other.
Yeah.
When like we are like, oh, this is just some separate person that I'm not thinking this is a human. This is a dad. This is a grandpa. This guy has a family. Like this is a real situation. And we lose all that stuff with the way we take everything in.
Yeah. And
nowadays.
I just feel like I really hope people just open their mind and just you can't believe everything you hear. You can't believe everything that's said, especially by the law. I mean, so, Pueblo, it's just, I really would say within this past year and a half, sitting through every court date for my dad in both trials and everything, that how corrupt they are. And two, like the detectives, like, when they took my dad in, I'm sure they told the family, like, we got the guy and this is it. That's it. And I feel like that was very wrong of them, like pretty much promising them, like something, and it's just,
what gave you that? That's just kind of how it felt in general.
Yeah, because they pretty much walked in there like, oh yeah, he's gonna get convicted, and this is the guy that did it, and that's it. And I'm pretty sure in this, in the first trial, my aunt actually had walked in because she thought we were still at the courtroom. So after the trial was over and the jury went to go deliberate, my aunt walked in there, and like the victim's family and like the prosecutor and everybody, they were still in there, and we were at my aunt's house just waiting, my other aunt's house. And they were like celebrating because she walked in while they were celebrating, and she was just like, what happened? And pretty much they were just like, yeah, we got this, like like we won this trial, like, and that was the first trial.
That's another thing that happens too, is like this is she's prominent in the community or whatever, right? Yeah. And so I think there's a pressure that happens for law enforcement in those situations where they're like, we got to get somebody. And that's something you've seen throughout human history.
Yeah.
Is like sometimes they just need to get someone.
Yeah.
Because then everyone can feel satisfied, like, we got the person or whatever. And again, what's missed is the details and the nuance of like, is this, are we being objectively fair? Does the evidence really point to this?
Right. And like, like I said earlier, they just got my dad's name and that was it, and then, obviously they did their investigating and stuff, and, got my dad's truck on camera in the area, and that, and that's it. And like, they didn't search any other leads. Like, there was, that the owner of the bar had threats prior to the shooting of like pretty significant threats of like someone coming to, shoot up the bar or like coming to hurt him and stuff. Cause I guess he was involved in a lot of things, like him and his son or something like that. That was the rumors, but
the bar owner.
Yes.
Okay.
And that was something our lawyers had brought out. They actually showed text messages from the person who was threatening the bar owner prior to this shooting.
And that person matched the description?
No, they just, they ruled that out because that person who was making the threats wasn't in Pueblo that night. But he was pretty much saying in its messages, like, I'll get someone to come, do whatever, you know, like in that type of way. And they didn't go further down into investigating that. And then, like I said earlier too, when our lawyers found evidence of another a potential suspect where it was said by his friends that he pretty much admitted to this, because I guess that kid at the time, he was a young kid, he was out did multiple shootings and stuff prior, and then I think even like a day before this shooting happened, and then unfortunately that kid had got gunned down and got killed by the police in a standoff in July of 2024. So they couldn't bring him in anyways or question him. And I kind of think that's why they didn't really want to investigate further on that, and the judge just denied that evidence because it was more like, yeah, he said, she said, but the evidence that we found fit the timeline way better than what. And then, like, that kid, he was involved in gangs and stuff, and there was a lot of retaliation that he was doing. So, it's just like that just fit more of what, of an actual suspect compared to my dad, who was just out that night, just trying to go get food or just being out that night.
Yeah.
And they were, if they were going to allow the evidence, they were going to bring the guy the kid that got killed, they were going to bring his friend in because he was in jail with my dad. And he's the one who had told my dad that, they'd
done it before or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then, I had just recently got word that another person came up to my dad recently in jail and said that, I know who did that shooting. And it was the same kid that, that got killed. It was the same kid. So his name got brought up again. So like, It's just like, why? I just don't understand why they just didn't go further into investigating, and they just really pinned this on a guy who, just this old man who just was just out that night. Then that's it. Like literally this was like worst case scenario of wrong place at the wrong time for my dad, and then obviously for the victim.
For the family too, for everybody too.
Yeah.
And were you gonna?
No, I was just gonna say in general, like as far as Pueblo goes, Pueblo has the highest violent crime rate in Colorado. So for any cities above 10,000 or more, they're the highest. They're the number one in Colorado for violent crime. The crazy stat is it's by a lot. It's not by a little. It's like 1,424 violent crimes to every 100,000. Denver is next on that list with 993. So it's like 500 more.
Wow. Yeah, right. And like I said, that area, I think even at that particular bar, they had stuff like this happen before.
Oh, yeah.
Well, she said like just up the block the same night.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So, there's, gang wars going on constantly, gun violence, drug stuff out there is really bad. It's just like, it just still, like, it honestly still, some days it doesn't seem real that my dad really got convicted for this. And it's just horrible. And, like this fight isn't over.
That's what I was going to ask you, what the next steps look like, maybe.
Yeah. We're definitely in the process of the appeal, that whole appeal process, but that can take a long time, especially with there being 2 trials. There's so much they have to, go through, but yeah, like I said, we're going to keep fighting, and we're going to do everything we can to, get my dad out of there. And just, really, we just, now we just, the only thing we could do is really give it to God and just hope that he will just have that faith that he's going to get out and not give up. But as my dad's daughter, I'm not going to ever give up. Like, I'm pretty quiet. I'm like my dad. I'm pretty quiet. So, for me being here today, this is like a big thing for me, but I'm just done being quiet. Honestly, quiet doesn't really do you any good. In some cases, like this, like definitely we have to speak out and just do everything we can now for him. Since he got convicted, it's just harder for him to have a voice, especially being in there. So yeah.
So if So if listeners take one thing away from this podcast, what would you want that to be?
Just to open your mind to situations. Like I said, like, you want to trust the law, and you want to like believe that they're getting the crime off the streets, how, appropriately and everything. But just keep an open mind to that, and just never judge a book by its cover. Never judge never just assume they're guilty when you don't know their story or know the actual story, or you just hear one side of the story. You definitely need to hear both sides of the story. I guess that's really mostly it. And just, just advocate if you're going through something like this or know someone going like this, just advocate for them, and you just got to be there for them and just speak up.
Just gotta remember that we're all humans,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We're all human beings.
Well,
And
it's the human side of things, right? Just to make sure that everybody's, taken care of. And I'm pretty sure your whole family, with, you said you have brothers and everything as well. And so, making sure everybody's there for each other, right? That human aspect of everything. And because you can't let one person drop down, because if one person drops down, then it's going to follow suit. Other people are going to drop down. And so, keeping that as much positivity as you possibly can in a bad situation is probably the best, and like you said, it's with somebody that suffers from anxiety and depression, you can't dip down,
Right.
because that just, fails other people on that link of chain of family.
Yeah. And I do want to emphasize, coming from me, my whole family, and my dad, we pray. I pray for the family a lot, and the victim's family, and there's no hate towards them. There's none of that. We are truly sorry, and, send our prayers and love to them, no matter how much they might hate us, or, especially, hate my dad. Because this is awful. It's not only awful for my dad, but it's awful for them.
Yeah, it's a human life. Yeah.
This should have never happened. It should have never happened. She should have never died. The lady should never got shot in her hand. The people at the bar should have never experienced such a horrible crime. That's traumatizing, just even being there.
Yeah.
And
By proximity, yeah.
And my dad should have never got convicted of this either. So it's really messed up for both sides. And we do feel for the family and pray for them always. And just, there's no hate. There's no hate coming from us. And, I wanted to be angry so bad at the prosecutor, and I wanted to be angry so bad at the detective and everybody, but that's not going to do anything. It's not going to bring my dad back out. And so, I'm just been doing my best to just remain positive as much as I can be, and just be there for my dad and be his voice. So
I think it's the right perspective to have.
Yeah.
It's just something we all need. Looking around at the world, man, this just, to me, is so parallel to just everything we're seeing right now.
Yeah.
We just forget about each other, that we're not all in this together, that we're not all one species, that we're not all one group of people.
Right.
I like the way you put that, and I think that speaks volumes about you and your family in general, and how you view the world.
Yeah.
Because I think that there's a lot of people that would be super angry,
Hateful.
Oh, yeah.
hateful,
Yeah.
right? And that old expression, hurt people, or whatever. And I think to overcome that, there has to be a spiritual side. And that was a question I was going to ask you too, if you believed in God, or if that was a thing. And it sounds like it is. And I think we just all need that a lot more these days.
Yeah, no, I definitely, pray a lot. I pray every day for my dad and, the family. And, my dad, he's really big into his faith as well. And, so, I just, whatever happens, in the future, I just hope something good will come of this, and we'll kind of understand more of why this happened. That big why question is really big up in the air, because it's just why my dad? Why this?
Yeah.
Why did this shooting happen? So, that question is just hanging over all of us. But, like I said earlier, I just hope my dad just, I don't know if he gets out or not. I know my dad, he's going to continue to do good and wherever he's at. And I mean, prison isn't ideal, but,
what would justice look like to you at this point?
Like if my dad were to get out, or just like
Yeah, no, just in general, like because I think it's fair to say justice doesn't feel like it was served for you,
Oh, yeah.
right? So what would justice, now that this is all
Mhm.
behind us and we can't undo anything that's
Mhm.
happened, what do you think it would look like moving forward?
I guess I don't know. I never really thought about that. It's a good question, but maybe just like, when the appeal and everything goes through, I just hope that his innocence will be found in all of this, and that,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and then if he doesn't get out, I'll always, like, if he doesn't get out, I will, I'll always think that, like, feel like justice didn't get served, and it makes me
course.
sad, because it's like that family does deserve justice.
Oh, yeah.
But if my dad does get out, it's like I really hope that Pueblo County and like the lead detective, and all the other detectives behind this case can do better and focus better, and not mishandle things, and actually make sure you're not just narrowing down on one person, or because of, because this was said. Like, make sure you explore everything, because you put someone behind bars for the rest of their life. Like, you completely ruin, like, the victim and her family, they lost someone special, and that their lives changed forever,
Yeah.
but so did ours. So did my dad's. Like, even if he gets out, he's not going to be right mentally. It's going to take him a while to, process everything that happened, like, to get his life back, or what's left of his life. Because, like, he does have significant health issues. So it's like, that's another thing that comes into all this too. It's like, he, even if he got like 20 years, I don't, he doesn't, like, health wise, he really doesn't have that long. And this stress on him, I know, has taken a toll on him. And, so it's just like they really ruined, like, both families, people's lives really got ruined. A bunch of people's lives got ruined in this case. And I just really hope that they would do better, and that, and like, if my dad did get out, like, obviously we're gonna
Celebrate that.
we're gonna fight back and be like, you guys slandered my dad's name. He can never go back to Pueblo. Like, all those things like that, you can pretty much fight back for, and like the money and all that too. I mean, it's not about money, but he lost
But
everything.
still, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that really hit home when you said that. I never thought about that side of things too, because for one, I think this is a different experience for somebody who's 35 going through this. And he's 62, you said?
63.
he's
63.
He'll be 64 in May. So
Yeah, being 63, I think it's a whole different type of experience. And
Mhm.
that really kind of hit me in the chest when you said the thing about everything he's worked for his whole life, that he's built, the cars and the house and everything.
Gone,
To
yeah.
just literally just lose a lifetime of that is insane.
In the course of 2 years.
Like I said, I think we all just walk around just kind of reading headlines and going, "Whoa, man, that's crazy. Wow, that's crazy that happened." And never stopping to be like, "Man, we just got to have more empathy as a people, dude."
Yeah.
Because it could happen to any of us at any given time.
yeah.
Your
Oh, yeah.
life can just be flipped upside down at the drop of a hat.
Well, I've told this story on the podcast before when I got detained for the drive-by shooting.
Oh yeah.
And I was in Aurora, and I was driving in the area, and got pulled over, and it was like, all right, it's like, yeah, there was a drive-by shooting that happened in the area. It was in a green Acura Integra, and the male was an Asian male, with the leather jacket and a red shirt. And I'm just like, oh, that sucks. Like, at that point in time, you're like, man, I'm cooked. You're like, I'm gonna go to jail. That's it. And then again, thank God that when they did have an actual witness to the person that got a good view of who it was, and when that person saw me, they were like, "No, that's not him." And I was like, "Oh my God," just like But it was one of those moments where, again, in the same situation, like, my life probably could have been changed, like, indefinitely forever.
yeah.
And it's just because of that whole thing, like you said, the wrong place,
Wrong time.
wrong time.
Yeah, and that's another thing too. Like, I would want people to take away from this is just be careful, like, and just don't, and just literally just be careful. You could literally be at the wrong place at the wrong time, get mistaken for a crime you didn't commit, or could lose your life. But just be careful. Just be aware of your surroundings, and just have an open mind. And yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's a very flawed world that we live in, Pierce.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing to take away from this is to, families out there that are going through something similar is to keep on advocating,
Yes.
for your family. Keep on being a good support system, for your family, for those people that are, going through, trial, going through pre-trial, going through, the same things, as you put it, keeping that positivity, making sure that everybody's, up and up, because when one person falls down, it's going to be everyone else. So I think that's the one thing to take from this is just advocate and be in that corner, and be that support system.
Most definitely.
Jasmine, thank you for being here today. Appreciate you choosing us to be to help you have a voice and to get that out there, and we're happy to be part of it too. So
Yes, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right, Dollar. And with that, it is a wrap.
cheers.